The pack is running and the hunt is on. The question is, will the Prime Minister survive? Forget about Brexit for the moment. Dozens of journalists are now working on the Boris and Jennifer Arcuri story, and hardly a day goes by without a new angle being published. The allegation, of course, is that Boris and Jennifer were having an affair when he was Mayor of London, and he used his influence to fix up all sorts of inappropriate things for his American friend. Now, neither the Prime Minister or Mrs. Arcuri have confirmed they had a sexual relationship, but neither has been willing to deny it either. So, is it fair for him to be hassled and chased by a pack of journalists in this way? Are they really pursuing the story in the public interest? Well, Johnson can hardly complain. He was a journalist, and in his time covering the EU from Brussels, he is known to have filed exaggerated or completely untrue stories. The pack have now scented his blood, and I'm afraid, Prime Minister, you'll just have to put up with it. Those who live by the sword die by the sword.
I'm not sure, Greg, you should be using that sort of language, blood and die by the sword. However, and the use of the word pack, journalists were a pack, were like a pack of wolves, scavengers. Yeah. Actually, it's a legitimate journalistic inquiry because Boris Johnson, as Mayor of London, was mayor when this particular woman was given a grant by an organisation that came under the aegis of him, £10,000. Now, he says it was all done properly and above board. Fine. Did he declare an interest in a friendship with this woman? No. I think he probably should have. She accompanied him on 3 overseas trade trips. Why? Then she got more money from another government department. Now, I'm not suggesting the Department of Culture, Media and Sport gave money because Boris Johnson had given her money before, and we don't know if he approved that grant. But we're entitled to ask, Greg, it's so important that MPs, particularly after the great expenses scandal, are seen when they're spending public money to be doing it in the most scrupulous way. And she refuses to say whether they had an affair. I think we can assume, Rachel, the answer is they did, because it would be much easier to say they didn't. And therefore, should he have declared an interest when she got that money? I think he should have.
And actually, let me come back. I don't disagree with you. I think, I mean, there is a pack going, let's not kid ourselves.
There isn't a pack, it's journalists doing their job.
Yeah, journalists doing their job when they do it en masse, or a pack, and they behave like a pack quite regularly. However, I don't disagree with you. I think it is...
Pack is a derogatory word, Greg. You're using it in a derogatory way. You are.
It's derogatory. It's just a bunch of people who are doing something
together
at the same time.
He's the Prime Minister. He's got a great team of people who can look after him.
Wolf packs are great.
Yeah. You know, I think this story is actually, in a funny way, it's playing well for him, because the real story behind this is whether he misappropriated the funds. What the media are concentrating on is whether or not they had an affair. And I think Jennifer Arcuri, I think that interview she did on GMB, I think she came across incredibly well. I think she came across as charming and as lovely. What she did was, but where she wasn't fluffy or blonde, she did this thing where she made it absolutely clear that there was no financial misappropriation. And you listen to her, on everything else, she was kind of, you know, or did we? And what she did was, let me just finish, at the end of this interview, I think she came across really well. And I think what she also came across as she wasn't then a victim and she isn't now a victim. And I actually liked her for that.
We have to go back to the point, though. I'm just going to read you the mayoral code of conduct. Quite clear. This is what he was operating on when he was mayor of London. It says, holders of public office should act solely in terms of the public interest. They should not do so in order to gain financial or other benefit for themselves, their family or their friends. What we still need to know is, did Boris sign off that £10,000 grant to her? She doesn't know. Yeah. And the thing he does, and he hasn't answered the question.
But the thing about that interview was she left everyone hanging on did they or didn't they? And the media was concentrating on that rather than the financial misappropriation.
Let's just have a quick look at what Boris Johnson said when he was interviewed by Beth Rigby on Sky.
I wouldn't ask
on the question you asked. I never comment on that kind of thing, because
so you're not denying that you were having an affair with her.
The crucial thing is that in terms of promoting London, everything was done with complete propriety. And I may say, I think it.
But this is very interesting. The reason I ask is I don't want to talk about your private life. It's the issue about whether you misuse public money. That's why I'm asking whether you were having a sexual relationship with her.
There was no question of that at all.
But I mean, Boris has said that he thinks that this story is being followed by people who who want to frustrate Brexit. And I think that was a mistake for him to say that. I think it's perfectly legitimate for him to say, I had a life, but it's not.
You don't think that?
Yeah.
That's
I think
I don't think it's anything to do with frustrating Brexit.
Well,
I think
this is obviously a hard one for me, but I disagree with what Carol said. I don't think the story is about whether they did or they didn't.
No.
And we've heard what Jennifer Arcuri has said about that, and we've heard what Boris Johnson has said about that. And I don't think that's interesting or germane to this story, only insofar as it then casts a new light on why she was in receipt of funds, public money. And I think that is the only important point that has to be explored by the press. And there is an ongoing investigation, and Downing Street has provided some submission to City Hall that I think has either been redacted or not been published. In the meantime, we do have a Labour mayor in City Hall who has provided the following statement about the allegations. These are very serious allegations. At the moment, they are just allegations. I have asked my Chief of Staff to ask City Hall officials to look into what process there was during this time, were these processes followed, but also whether there are any lessons that need to be learned. Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it.
So I don't, like I said, I don't understand why the fixation was on the affair and not the impropriety in the relationship and the conflict of interest. But
alleged.
Well, yeah, the alleged conflict of interest.
Alleged affair as well.
Yeah, alleged affair.
Alleged-ish affair.
But that's kind of the point. And you mentioned the thing about how he's conflating it with Brexit. I think we need to be really, really careful, especially those of us who naturally are predisposed against Boris Johnson. To jump on this only makes him stronger. We should not be building our house on the sand of an uninvestigated crime. Find out the facts, carry out the investigation, and then we'll come to a conclusion.
It's
very simple. That's kind of what the media are doing, Femi, and that's what Greg's criticising.
But spinning it out in the
kind of what they're doing.
Spinning it out in the media.
If there was a paper trail, I think, which could go right back to when that grant was approved, you'd think it might have come to light now, because I suspect the Mayor of London has a political interest in all of this. He's Labour, after all. He's very ambitious. This is where a lot of the information's coming from. If there was a paper trail that directly linked Boris Johnson to giving that woman a grant, I think he's in serious trouble, because he didn't declare an interest.
Yeah. And I think you misunderstood what I was saying. I was saying the media should be concentrating on the misappropriation, but they're not. A lot of the time they're concentrating on the affair, which is actually doing Boris a favour, because the truth of it is that, and this is no disrespect, people might have expected Boris to have an affair with someone.
By the way, I think you did.
Yes.
By the way, Andrew, I think you're doing Sadiq Khan a disservice. I don't think this is coming from Sadiq Khan.
You don't think this has come anywhere near City Hall?
Former City Hall.
Oh, interesting.
But hang on,
maybe. I mean, that's not...
Ken Livingstone? Long time ago.
You misunderstand.
I get you.
But City Hall is obliged to investigate it.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, and it should.
But all I'm saying is, in that time, the Sunday Times, who have led the story, really, will do it again this week. Almost certainly, even if it's getting a bit thin, because that's what happens when you get these
You talked about this pack, but no one else has produced any stories around this, around the Jennifer Arcuri.
Well, ITV paid a lot of money for the interview.
But
the rumour is around £20,000.
Yes. So
she was pitching for newspapers for a lot more money.
For a lot more money, yes.
But she had to say a lot more than what she said so far, let me tell you.
To be honest, we just need answers, and then spinning out in the media is not going to get anywhere. Have an investigation.
What he's saying is that if there was a paper trail, it would be there.